What's your favorite video game sound effect?
I play Minecraft a lot. Minecraft has a lot of sounds in it.
You like the grass sound, don't you?
The best sound effect has to be the alien scream from Area 51. Rear.
I'm trying to think. I don't even know if I know that one.
You remember that?
I know what you're talking about.
I just do like Mario.
It's just such a niche game that most people
Area
haven't
51.
played. You're talking about the arcade game.
Rear. Yeah.
Are you even doing it?
Sounds offensive.
Look it up.
I'm not going to look it up.
Area 51.
I used to love that game.
I hate it the
I
more he
love
does
that
it.
game.
It's pretty sick.
I gotta check it out.
I do that one for Mortal Kombat. Whoopsie!
Oh yeah, that's a good
It's
one.
toast.
That's not Mortal Kombat.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
That's Street Fighter.
No, it
No,
isn't. It's
that's
Mortal
Mortal Kombat.
Google
Yeah.
it right now.
I 100%
I swear to God,
know for
Ryan,
facts.
Whoopsie.
I know that it's not
It's a Vega.
Whoopsie.
No.
I think it's Toasty,
What?
but I know that it's not Whoopsie.
Why do you know? How do you know?
He's
Because
a nerd.
Oh damn, you are a nerd, dog. It is Toasty, I guess.
Really?
That's what it says here, Toasty.
I've just heard Whoopsie my whole life.
Me too.
Everyone did.
Because it's funnier.
What's his
Wow,
name?
learn something new.
How does the sound go when Yoshi like licks something when you're riding him? I know you could do it.
I can't do it that well.
we're overloading people with sound effects, and there's one person that's losing their shit. There's definitely people that are annoyed as fuck about all of this.
There's
He's over
someone
here.
stuck in traffic right now, and he's just so upset that everyone else is.
Someone
like,
almost
hearing,
hits him and hears
His-
Whoopsie!
He just lost his job, and his wife told him that she doesn't want to see him anymore. And he's driving home. He's stuck in traffic, and his car is almost out of gas.
And
And,
he
he's just,
just hears me going,
no,
Well,
it's Toasty. No, it's not. It's Whoopsie.
Hello, I'm Ryan Reyes,
And I'm Dominic Angel.
and I'm Ricky Macias.
and together we are
Un
Poquito.
Podcast.
Un Poquito Podcast, exploring Latino culture little by little.
Welcome back, everybody. We've been recording for an hour straight. We already have a whole other episode that we could make out of this. But I forgot what I was going to say. Here we are, fellas. I don't know how we lasted today. But we're here. Thank you for being here. I'm excited. First order of business that we got to get into. We have a big announcement to make. Everybody's afraid to say it, but I guess I have to be brave enough to be the one. We have some big plans of what we want to do, and I know that I feel like I've been saying we have big plans for the podcast for like the last 6 months. Because we've let me start at the end. We're going to be taking a bit of a break from releasing main episodes. So starting this week, this will be our last public episode until September. We don't have a date chosen specifically in September, but it's going to be the first week of September, I believe.
Okay.
But we're taking a break from releasing public episodes of. What are you doing? Don't do any of that,
The
please.
eyes.
Just please don't do any of that.
You look at the camera.
That's funny. Is it your social anxiety?
No, it's just that nobody else is saying anything, and I have to be the one to say everything. So there's a lot of stuff going on in my mind. I got fucking Idle Hands McGee over here.
Idle Hands McGee. That should be your D&D name.
Okay,
Idle Hands should be the name of your special.
so we're gonna be taking a break from releasing public episodes of the podcast until September. What that means is we're not going to really go away. We're not going to stop doing the podcast. We still plan on making content for the Patreon. So if you want to if you want to stay up to date with our content and see what we're going to be up to, catch new episodes in the meantime, you can join us over on Patreon. Links are in the description. There's a bunch of reasons why we're doing this. you know, this has been kind of a crazy year. We're reaching 1 year of doing this podcast pretty soon. Actually, when we come back, that'll be our 1 year anniversary in September. But everybody knows that the reason why this podcast got started came with a lot of extenuating circumstances, I will say. So, just for my end, I feel like we should have waited a little bit more time before we even started on Poquito podcast. I kind of feel like for my own sake and for Ryan, we kind of jumped the gun a little bit on when we started the podcast. But we did that because we were receiving so much support from the audience, and a lot of people were motivating us and supporting us, and that helped us a lot to get started, and I'm super appreciative of that. But at the same time, the podcast takes a lot of work to get done, to come and shoot, record, edit, put out clips, do all the necessary promotions that we have to do, all the scheduling and stuff. And, truth be told, at the time, Ryan and I were not necessarily in the best circumstance to be doing a podcast. We were trying to make it so that hopefully it would grow enough where we could be doing it full time in the short time that we had. But just given the circumstances that we were in, my living situation and Ryan's situation changed dramatically. And we just weren't in the best position to be doing it. But we kept trying. We kept doing the thing that we wanted to do because I love doing this podcast. This is my passion. And I have wanted since day one to put out the best possible quality show that we can. And I just really feel like we haven't really been able to do that. I feel like there's been a lot of things that were presented as opportunities, especially on my end. There's a lot of stuff where I announced like, now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do certain shows or certain things. We're going to have a release schedule. And like within a few weeks, things just weren't that way. Some of the stuff that happened where I was presented with a lot of employment opportunities, things that were going to help me make money, things that were going to help me gain stability. And on top of that, there was a lot of stuff that was meant to be temporary that ended up not being temporary. I thought that I was going to be given a better schedule that would allow me to work on the podcast the way that I would like to. And it just never happened. So I feel like I myself have constantly been falling through. I've been constantly falling through on certain, I don't want to say I've never made promises, but certain things that I put out, that I promoted, that we were going to be doing that just never came to fruition. On top of that, in April, this is a big thing and it's become more real for me. In April, during Autism Awareness / Appreciation Month, we did the RADS R test, and Ryan ran us through the test for autism and for ADHD, and I found that I closely identify to ADHD, and I've been doing a lot more research on it, and it's kind of like short of a doctor's diagnosis, I'm like certain that I have ADHD. And there's so many things that I've read about, that I've learned about online, that I relate so heavily to events happening all throughout my life, that it's been kind of overwhelming. And like learning about this thing, about having it, has kind of really shaken me up a little bit, if I'm honest. I kind of liken it to, like, do you guys know, I was saying this, so I've been reading about ADHD burnout for a long time, or recently it's been popping up more and more, and it's like a common thing with adults that get diagnosed with ADHD at a later age that a lot of us tend to experience this thing called ADHD burnout. And for me, it kind of presented itself in a way where I thought I was keeping it together for so long. Even though there were ways that I knew that I wasn't, there was stuff that I was being affected by, that like stuff was falling through the cracks. And not to bring up old stuff again, but it's like, it kind of just like the issues that I was having with ECMO and stuff kind of started to make sense. And I wish that I would have known about this then so that I could better communicate things and I won't get into any of that, but I just like a lot of stuff kind of started to make sense. And so I've been experiencing ADHD burnout, and it's prevented me from really giving my best effort. The way that I kind of experienced it is like, or that I compare it is like, have you ever been? I don't know if they still have them, if these things still exist, but they used to have them at Disneyland, and they have them at like the county fair or whatever, where like they have those like foot massagers on the sides. You know, the ones that like you sit in a chair and then it's like a vibrating piece of metal at the bottom. Yeah. I used to love to use those, but I hated it afterwards.
Yeah.
Because afterwards, I was like, you feel good while you're using it. And then afterwards, you're walking around and you're like, fuck, my feet hurt so much. I didn't realize how much my feet were hurting until I released all the tension in them. And like, that's kind of how I felt about like getting this ADHD diagnosis. Is just like my body, my whole being was just, my brain was like under so much tension and like trying to keep everything together. And then when I like started to learn about it, it released everything all at once, and it felt good in the initial release of like, okay, now I know what I'm dealing with here. But then it's like, fuck, everything hurts, and it just like became overwhelming for me. So yeah, that's on my end. This isn't just for me. I want to say, like, I know I'm the one presenting this, but we've all talked, and the guys are on board, and nobody has to share anything about them. I wanted to talk about my own experience, but the truth is that all four of us are dealing with stuff outside of the podcast that has kind of gotten in the way of really putting in the effort that we want to. And I want to say, like, this, taking this time away from doing the public episodes, is that we've already started working on plans, and this is part of our journey, and it's so that we can come back strong, you know, and really put out a show that we're all proud of. I'm proud of the stuff that we've put out. I'm proud of the episodes that we've done and the work we've done together, and I'm thankful for everybody that's been around since the beginning and that is supportive of us. But I hope people understand where we're coming from and why we're doing what we're doing. And, you know, I'm thankful for anybody that will stick around, and I'm excited for the stuff. We just spent all day planning out our shooting schedule for the weeks in between. And the things that we're going to do that I'm not going to announce because I don't want to fall back on stuff yet again. But, you know, that's where I'm coming from. I don't know if anybody else wants to share anything about this. I know Ryan wants to talk about burnout, but before we get into that, does anybody else have anything they want to say about this?
No, yeah, I think it's like closely tied in with that. Like, we're gonna probably touch on it with this topic and what I think something else we'll talk about in the episode. But yeah, I think hitting the ground running is really hard when you like haven't been able to have like a proper foundation. Because I feel like that's what I've been doing in my life too, is like setting a proper foundation under me and getting a proper routine in my place of living. Because like for me, I was like switching jobs for the first time in my life.
Dude, you're switching jobs like every couple weeks. Like,
no, it feels that way. But I like switched. I was at a new job for the first time forever, and I left it after 4 months, and now I've been at this job for like now 7 months.
Oh, okay.
So like, but it was all like I had never changed this much of my life at once. Like, I joined a podcast, switched jobs twice.
You started producing Chatterbox.
Started producing. I was like, oh, I just changed my whole life in the matter of like 8 months.
You
But-
became Polly.
It became Bali, all this crazy shit. But that being said, I feel like, I'm learning how to like relax, kind of like you're saying, like release the tension a bit and like realizing I was burning myself out in general. And now I'm learning how to like kind of structure my life and feeling out what I can handle. And then if I organize my time, then I could deliver more.
Right.
Yeah. So I kind of feel you.
Yeah, to me, that's kind of the thing about. You often hear the phrase where people say like they just need to work on getting back on their feet, and you also hear the phrase pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. To me, those things are related. Where like the first step is not getting back up on your feet. The first step is finding solid ground. You have
Yeah.
to be able to pull yourself out of the mud first,
Yeah.
because that's the thing is like they're mutually exclusive. You can't firmly plant your feet where you are and have that be a starting point if the ground is constantly giving out under you, you know? Like in my personal situation, I won't get too personal about it, but the one thing I will say is like over the past 5 years, I've moved a lot, and that's put a huge strain on my ability to progress and sustain myself in a way that is functional. The biggest detriment I've had is just being able to find work. And that has its own hiccups or obstacles already because I'm disabled, and I mean that's it.
Yeah.
Like, that's
You're
the thing.
disabled.
It's like I'm disabled, and it's difficult not only to find a work that's efficient enough. The difficulty isn't necessarily that I'm being turned away because I'm disabled, but it's the thing of like I have certain detriments that have to be addressed whenever I apply to a place, and that makes it difficult for me to be looked at as higher than someone who can do it without those detriments. And if those things aren't seen necessarily as a disability to the policy of the company or even to the state, like that can be an issue. Separate from finding work, it's also hard for me sometimes to apply to programs because I have to prove that I'm affected by these things. And it's not that I can't prove it, but it's like that it's dependent on not only what I'm actually going through, but how they define what I'm going through. And one of the biggest things for me is like, even now, you know, I get commented on a lot about how I'm well spoken, and that's the thing of like that's something I had to learn, and that was something that like affected my life for a large portion of it, up until I want to say till I was at least 21. That was like probably around the time that I started actually like not living on my own. I lived in a house with family and with roommates, but that was the time where I finally was able to like figure things out for myself. Like I took the bus a lot more on my own. I was able to transform myself and able to work on things that I wanted to work on. That's what around the time that I started doing comedy, and I figured that out for myself. I was going to school at the time. Those are things that I had to learn, and those are things that were harder for me to learn than other people because of the things that I have.
Yeah. I think a big part of all of this is just, learning about. Now that I work in paratransit, and like learning about ADA and learning about work accommodations and stuff, and just learning about people with disabilities. It's like the big part of this is like we can excel. I mean, all people are like this. It's not just people with disabilities or like neurodivergent people. It's all people can excel given if they are in the correct environment.
Yeah.
And I think, we're all talking kind of serious right now, and I don't want to bring down the mood. But like, I think what we're doing right now, taking this time to kind of recalibrate, I feel like our podcast has been in constant reiteration since we started. And I think that when we first started, it might have appeared that we were in better working conditions to succeed, and that over time it's changed. But I think that we never were in the appropriate working conditions. And I think what we're doing now is we've identified that we have issues. Ryan and I started this podcast together, and now learning that both of us have ADHD, both of us are autistic, trying to do this, and like on top of needing to have like steady income and all this stuff, it's just been like what I'm realizing now is that I can excel given the correct environment, but that environment has to be sustainable. When we first started this podcast, it wasn't sustainable. So now what we're doing with this, taking this time off, is we're creating the environment for us to put it. We're creating the correct working environment for us to excel sustainably, so that we don't just we don't do things in spurts. This is a long game, and so we're setting ourselves up best for that.
Right. I want to say what we did benefit from, for people to understand where we're coming from when we started this, was apart from the very large amount of support that we got out the gate, which we are still very appreciative. What we have gotten from that and has remained consistent no matter how hard it's been, how much of a struggle it's been to sustain ourselves doing this podcast, is we have more room we have the space to work on those things. Even though there's a learning curve, even though we've struggled and had to, what was the term you used? Reiterate the podcast or illustrate?
Iterate.
And even though we've had to take pauses, those are things that we'll have to deal with. It's a learning process for us, not only as the sort of headers of this project or the original orchestrators of this project, but also just as individuals. But we're more comfortable, I would say, in the sense of we're not afraid of having to rush that or having to hide that. That's a thing that we've maintained. It's a thing that I feel like we've maintained not only with each other, but with the fans, where we're very open about what's happening. Not to create excuses whenever we're struggling to get things done the way we want them, but more so that we can allow ourselves to go at the pace that is necessary so that we can work on these things in a way that is beneficial for us.
Yeah, I try to be open about a lot of things, and that's a big thing for me is I didn't know that I had ADHD. I didn't know I was autistic. And now that I am, I don't have any issues talking about it or being open with my journey learning about it.
Fuck, I just kicked the camera.
You son of a fucking
Sorry, dude.
duck.
Sorry. I had a joke, too. That's the whole reason I turned that hard. Because I was like, he's been trying to tell you you're autistic for fucking...
Right, just a montage of Dominic, I think you're autistic.
That's the most autistic thing you've ever said. That's the most autistic thing you've ever said.
100 times Ryan identified.
Cut to the Peter
Dominic's
Pan music,
"It can-"
and Ryan's like, Dominic, you're doing it. And it's just me solving complex equations.
Naming
it's also
trains.
a thing.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. It's also a thing that I'm sure I'll leave it to Dominic to speak on more if he wants to. But it's not only something I had to deal with when I was first diagnosed, but I feel like it is a common thing with neurodivergent.
Late diagnosis.
Neurodivergency in general. I think it's a common thing with late diagnosis for neurodivergency in general. But more common, I run into it in the communities of autism and ADHD, and specifically people who have both, where it's kind of I don't think this is why we use the term unmasking, but I think in a previous episode we referenced it to Scooby-Doo, of where it's to pull off that identity is jarring because it's been such a specific part of our existence until then, that if you're undiagnosed, you just weren't aware of. And so it becomes a thing of having to question whether or not you did things because you wanted to or because you thought you were supposed to. And that's part of what I bring up when I describe the thing called the rule book, where people grow up with this thing that they think everyone has to deal with. And when they find out that other people don't, it's hard for them to accept that because they, in their mind, have been able to sustain themselves thus far with that rule book.
That's a crazy thing. It's not crazy, but the coincident, I don't know. It reminded me of even now, making this decision has taken a long time to come to terms with on my own before even presenting it to the rest of the guys. Because I was just I was talking to Josh about this the other day, and it's when you go through these things, you really feel like, oh, what a hack. Like, am I doing this because it's actually happening to me? Or am I feeling this because I'm reading about it?
Yeah, I understand that feeling because it's like sometimes even like voicing these concerns or these feelings of like burnout. Because like I kind of told you guys a little bit. I was like I was, I would switching jobs and like fixing my moving situation. And I remember like I edited stuff a little bit at first, and I remember like I was just so burnt out at one point that like I would like sit at my computer and try to edit, and my body would shake. And it's just like, and now I'm not like in that place. I'm have a better structure and resting, but it's like I thought like, oh, people just do this, so I should be able to do this. I should be able to force myself to do this.
Right. And one of the things I keep telling myself, and I don't know I'm sure part of it comes from age, but I remember when I was like younger, in my early 20s, I could edit all night, no problem. But I think this just might be a person thing. It might not have anything to do with being neurodivergent, but it's just like I remember there was a fitness instructor talking about how yoga is very important because your body is like a ratchet strap. The more you use it, and like the more you use it without stretching, the tighter the ratchet gets. So it's like yoga is essentially just like releasing all that tension over time. And I think that that's kind of what I've been putting myself through all of these years, whether it's being neurodivergent or not. It's just like, I used to be able to fucking edit nonstop, no problem. I used to be able to do things overnight and then still go to work the next day and like be okay. And now I simply can't do it. Like it kills me. Like, I can't do it. I can't like just like drink a bunch of coffee and power through things. It's
that's like my coffee intake is dramatically reduced now because of it.
It's made because it makes things so much worse. It like arrests my body.
Yeah.
Like it just prevents me from doing anything. It overstimulates me, and then I just like am unable to function.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like, not to speak for you guys, but I feel like what happens to people is they reach a point where it's kind of like sort of a matrix moment where you're now able to see, for the first time you're able to notice how it actually affects you. You know what I mean? Like I used to drink ice water in the morning because I heard it was a good tip for waking yourself up. And then recently, a lot of people have shared with me that it's actually the reason that drinking ice water in the morning, not all at once, because that'll make you throw up, but like you're supposed to drink 2 cups over the course of like a couple hours, and it's supposed to alert your system. But what's happening is you're putting your system into shock. And the reason that was so bad for me is because I have an anxiety disorder. So I'm putting my body through and a mode of anxiety, and my brain doesn't know why my body's panicking, and that just causes more stress and problems. Like it's hard to ignore those things once they've been pointed out to you. And it's, there's tons of people we know who literally like think that they strive on stress. They think that if they wait till the last minute to do something, that's the best way they can handle it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you're not seeing how much you put on yourself in that scenario. Because
no, I get that. Cause it's like, I thought my body was supposed to be buzzing in order to like do stuff. And I was like,
it's like, now I have the energy.
And now I have the energy. I was like, oh, I'm getting like cortisol dumps, like stress hormones are dumping into my body. And I'm like, now I can do stuff. And it's like, inflaming my whole system.
And that's the thing, is like a lot of people didn't understand that question when it was referenced in the criteria for ADHD, but that's what they're referring to when they say, do you sometimes act as if you're running on a motor? That's that feeling they're describing.
Oh.
all that to say, listen, we thank everybody for being here. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, you can join us on Patreon. We're still planning on making content and putting it on there in the meantime, and we'll be back in September. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. I know we've already kind of started to touch on this situation, but Ryan, you wanted to talk about burnout officially? Just
Yeah.
want to continue what we've been talking about?
Yeah,
Going
it's
right
kind of
ahead.
naturally tied in.
Yeah, because it's something that I've noticed. I don't know if this is a thing, but in recent years, I've noticed that it's become the more and more people talk about these things, the easier it's become to gravitate towards people who think the same. Like once you understand why you're thinking like this and you hear other people talking about it, in the last 2 years more than I've experienced since my diagnosis 12 years ago, I've met like a plethora of not only neurodivergent people in general, take that again because you coughed. Not only neurodivergent people in general, but like Latinos with neurodivergency. It's so distracting.
I'm listening to you.
I know.
You should
were
be
like,
sensitive. He's stimming
you
right
like
now.
flick your wrist. It's like that weird move that fucking Henry Cavill did in that Mission Impossible movie where he cocked his hands before he fought someone. It's just like such a specific, direct, intentional movement.
Now imagine if he did it with eyes and a beanie. On.
Yeah, you bitch. You fucking green-eyed beanie bitch.
Fuck you. Not only do I feel like I've gravitated more towards people who are public about it, but not to sound like a the term used to be on TikTok autism mom. It's the mom of an autistic person.
Right.
It was like our version of Karen's, where a lot of parents would over obsess about the idea of autism and their kids like connection to it, that they would actually downplay anyone who didn't struggle the exact same way.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm doing, but I'm like, there'd be a thing where they would also try to guess. I used to do a joke when my mom first found out about autism that she was trying to find everyone that she could meet who was autistic and like diagnosing people on her own. But I have started to notice, now that I have a better understanding of myself, I'm seeing this in other people, and it's like it does feel like we gravitate towards each other because we think we.
No, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
That is a real thing that people that are neurodivergent gravitate towards each other is like a real thing. Somebody's done a study on it. I think somebody's done a study on it, but it is like they gravitate towards each other because they subconsciously understand each other.
Yeah, and what I think specifically is happening is there's two kinds of it. Where either like it's identifying understanding, where someone's explaining something they struggle with and someone else identifies for that, or taking it back to like the metaphor that I've used before, it's because they finally found someone else who has the rule book.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So they're bonding over their whether they're negative or positive, they're bonding over their coping mechanisms because they think like each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I found people who are like either best friends or they're in the same family or they're dating in a relationship who, from what I've seen, most likely both have or show signs of something. I don't want to say have. I don't want to be affirmative. I'm not a doctor in any form, and I never want to diagnose someone or affect their journey. But it would show a lot of clear signs that they might have these things, and it would explain their past traumas and their mutual trauma together.
I
What
feel
if there
like
was
I've been a lot of shade thrown at me right now.
What if there was somebody like Mr. Glass that was just like trying to find autistic people by like crashing trains and shit?
It's like, can you count how many cars were damaged?
Can you name them all?
Bruce Willis, just like he wasn't even planning on Bruce Willis surviving a train crash. He was just like, how many people died in
He
each
just
car?
loves trains, all right?
So, but wouldn't that be kind of like trauma bonding?
Yeah, that's
Trauma
what I'm saying.
bond-
It's like it's a form.
what trauma bonding is.
It's not.
No, there's a whole thing.
That's why I said, isn't that
Tess-
kind of like it?
Kinda
Tess
like
Gattuso. There's a person on TikTok. She's also a Twitter person. She makes memes.
I guess I'll take that again since you.
Tess Gattuso
Hold on.
put out a video that was about how like there is a thing where people bond with their traumas, which is what we're talking about. But the official explanation for trauma bonding is somebody bonding to their abuser that
Oh.
Yeah, I think
It's like
that's
Stockholm syndrome.
That's the official usage
I
of
always
that.
thought the
Oh.
definition was people who bonded through the same,
That's
like not
what I
people
thought
who
too.
experienced.
That's what a lot of people. That's how people say it.
I don't mean people who experience identical trauma. I mean people who went through the exact, like the thing together.
My joke that I was making when I did the voice like that was that it's a semantics thing because it's not the official definition.
Yeah.
But you
Okay.
are using it correctly. That's the colloquial use of it. I was being a fucking autistic person and just
So you
make.
think we talk like?
Okay.
Yeah.
My name's Ryan. Hello.
I thought that was a bad thing. When you're like, we both suffer from this thing, we can be friends.
I think it can become a bad thing
Okay.
because if that's
I don't really know too much about it. I just heard that as a term and heard people be like, watch out, because a lot of people who think they have a lot of things in common are actually trauma bonding. I don't believe in any of that stuff.
Trauma
dude.
bonding
I'm
can be
sorry.
a bad thing because it's like there's such a thing of like when you've only experienced a very particular thing. Just imagine, like, just for the sake of a stupid argument, let's just say that you're the only person in the world that knows what an avocado is. And
Okay.
you keep trying to tell people about avocados
All right.
and they don't get it. Like they could kind of understand it. You describe what it is and they're like, oh, a green mush, like a green fruit.
Shaped like a bull testicle.
whatever. And they're like, that's a cat, like, but then they bring you a cantaloupe and you're
That's
like,
why it's
that's
called
not what I'm talking about.
but
right?
that's what you're describing.
Yeah, exactly. So then you
Okay.
meet somebody that like they know what avocados are. They're like, oh yeah, and they like pull out an avocado, and it's like the same thing. If
Are you talking about this thing?
yeah, and now you're like,
Crazy.
holy shit, you know what avocados are,
And you
then
start
you're
crying.
You
like,
still start crying.
now, yeah, like
we
now,
should get
like
married.
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But now it's like you want to, all you want to talk to that person with about
Is-
is avocados,
Yeah,
and
so-
you're so excited because
Yeah,
no
yeah,
one
yeah.
else has this experience, and you're like, you can always go to that person and know that they'll understand
Avocado.
avocados.
But then that's bad because your
Well, it can
your
be
whole
a bad
relationship is based on avocado.
That's why it can be
Yes.
bad because it's like
Okay.
the you're pulled in the direction of like you're inclined to
That's
associate that as being like this person knows what avocados are. They understand everything about me.
That's part of what I was getting to. What I'm talking about. I don't know if there's a phrase for it already. I personally don't know it. If you do, let me know in the comments. But this is something different where it's not bonding over mutual trauma. It's bonding over
How you navigate the world.
identifying like each other's reaffirming a mask. I think is the best way I can describe it based on the available vernacular that I have. Where it's like it's the thing I would say, like you have the rule book too, so everyone else is wrong. We're the only ones that
I
get it.
It's like social confirmation bias.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you see a lot more with like neurodivergent people who lean towards conservative ideologies because they just haven't been able to have an example of the alternative that
Yeah.
makes sense to them.
An echo chamber.
Yeah, exactly. And so you see people, I see it a lot more in like friends and couplings, couples where you see a lot more in older generations where it's just like, it's where that, for me, it's where that thing comes from of like, these are the old traditions that they were raised on. So they look for a partner who only thinks like that too, because
Right, I understand.
that struggle of having to acknowledge that maybe someone misled you or maybe someone else didn't have the information either, so they only give you what they did have, and down the line someone was wrong about something, and you have to I understand that it feels like you have to change everything about you, but it's like, no, you are still you just have more context for that.
Yeah, tying into like this burnout stuff, like, because it's something I've noticed. Like, I mean, I'm talking about it from my point of view, my perspective, but I've seen a lot of Latino families where like the burnout stuff is real, but I think sometimes it ties in with like caretaking and taking in family members that are struggling. Because I think part of it is because we don't deal with this stuff well enough. But I think sometimes just financially things are hard, right? But sometimes we don't realize the financials are hard because of neurodivergence and burnout and no accommodations and just learning to just push forward.
Yeah, it's also like the whole workaholic, quote unquote, like mentality of like, I don't know, there's so much wrapped into it because there is a real thing within Latino households of just like having to work all the time, you know. But the I feel like the worst thing you could call a Mexican is lazy.
Yeah. Because I think that stuff still affects me. I think I have like a lazy energy about me. But then I started to talk to coworkers over time. They're like, "You don't take vacations?" Like some of these dudes work really hard. Like, "You don't take vacations?" And I was like, "I'm like learning to take time off." Like I used to let my vacation get eaten up.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, I just would try to save it or not use it.
You didn't
For
even
like
cash it out.
everything's an emergency.
Yeah, everything.
You only use this for doctor's appointments and emergencies.
which is crazy that you have to use your vacation time for a doctor's appointment.
Yeah, and that was like ingrained into me of like as a like diligence and a work ethic and a survival thing.
Well, it's
That's
even
something. I'll be quick. That's something that I've also noticed with the differences between older and younger generations, especially in the Latino community, where it's hard to get them. I don't think it's hard for them to understand. I think it's hard for them to want to accept, because it goes back to the thing I said about the rule book. But it's a thing of like, you know, recently someone told me that our generation is more sensitive, and I was like, well, that's something that the older generation said about the younger generation for multiple generations.
Yeah, you see that written every decade. You see that.
Like the certain things that people are tired of, they've always been tired of. But what's happening instead is that the room to actually say that out loud and the space to feel comfortable acknowledging that is growing.
Yeah.
You know, something specific I want to reference is this idea of quiet quitting. A lot of people have a misconception about what that is, and I don't know if I've said this before, but
you did say you were going to be quick.
This will be the last thing.
Okay.
You do this all the time. Okay.
Not today.
This reference of this thing, good. This reference of this thing of quiet quitting, a lot of people have a misconception of what that is. They think that that's the mental state going
Ryan,
in.
I'm sorry, but you don't have to speak 5 times faster to be quick.
This is how I talk when I'm just
Okay.
focused. But there's a misconception that that's the mentality in general, or that's the level of effort people want to put in at this generation. It's like, no, quiet quitting is just the new name for it, but it's a thing that people have practiced for the longest time, especially like warehouse and union workers. It's a thing of like,
It's like Buddhism.
Yeah. It's because he's been practicing. He's
For
been
generations
practicing.
and generations.
It's a very simple life of not exerting yourself too much.
No. like-
I've got this book. I can give it to you.
It's called the Steps to Enlightenment.
no, it's when
No
you
steps.
actually look at what quiet quitting is, it's the mentality that you reach after putting everything you possibly could into a company and not being reciprocated and not being
I've
given
been there.
specifically what you were promised, you know, being downplayed, being underappreciated. That's a thing that's always been prevalent about, you know, quiet quitting is something when you're in the position where you can't just leave right away. You have to, you know, you're dependent on that mode of income until you find something new. So you switch gears. You start looking for other places to go. You put the effort in to places that will put the effort back. But in the meantime, you're doing the minimum to survive.
Yeah, and I think that's
The
something.
fuck, Dominic?
I was thinking
Oh,
it kind of
This
sounds
is a
like
clippable moment and you've ruined it.
it kind of sounds like you're describing marriage, like a bad marriage too, of just being.
But
like,
it's all relationships. Like work is a relationship.
I think it is comparable because
Yeah.
people take the mentality out of the workforce and like just into their general interactions.
One thing I was going to say about that point was somebody. I wish I knew this person's name so I could credit them, but I had seen this video, this like video essay that it was just a cholo. Don't work hard, fool. Work smart.
Today we're gonna go over the 10 rules of quiet quitting.
I digress. No, this guy put out this video that essentially was talking about people that make that claim about how like people, the older generations are like, this generation's so soft, or they're too sensitive, or like they have it too easy, or blah 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 blah. And the guy was essentially saying like, yeah, like That's true, and we should be able to worry about these things because when you progress as a society, you find out ways to improve it.
Because part of the point of why I was bringing this stuff up is because like I've seen it at least in my family and some other Latino families. I'm not saying other communities don't do this, but that will take family members in that are struggling or like just burnt out. We don't even have a full on conversation sometimes about this. Like, well, you need help. So the help is given.
Yeah.
Within reason as much as you can. But it's like, sometimes it's because all of this is happening. And then people say like, oh, you're enabling them. They just want to be a victim. I'm not saying those circumstances don't exist, but there is a point where someone needs to be taken care of so they can get things in order to succeed, to keep growing.
That's a very tricky thing because it's like people have to understand that giving that kind of help and support for somebody is a very like complex.
Absolutely.
It's definitely hard to navigate because I'm always for supporting people and for helping people and like taking care of people mentally and emotionally and like just overall support, right? And so like I would lean more for that of like helping someone, like giving them a place to stay. But there is a very real thing of like there are people that one can take advantage of that or two like I mean I guess the best way to just say it is like they take advantage of that.
Absolutely, because like,
and you could be enabling somebody,
very well could be,
but it's a case by case thing, and it is very much like a balance because like I talked about in the Q&A episode years ago, I was talking to a friend, and he was 22 at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm 22, and I'm like still living at my mom's house." And at the time, I think I was like 27, 28, and I was like, "Dude, stay with your parents as long as you can. It's the only way that you're going to be able to like have the foundation to succeed. Like save your money. The fact that you won't have to pay rent, or even if you have to pay less rent, like, and I feel like that is a real thing with parents is like they shouldn't, unless they're absolutely in a position. If you could afford to pay your rent before your kid turns 18, you should be able to afford to like continue to pay it after they turn 18.
Yeah.
And like, I was just listening to this thing on the radio, and there was a person who is like a financial advisor or something, but she was talking about the benefits of that, of like letting your kids stay for free. As long as essentially it's like whatever you would charge them for rent, you have them save it, and they put it, that should be the rules of like, they put that money into a savings and they show you the proof that they're saving their money and they're preparing to move out. All that to say, like, there is a benefit to giving that kind of support if you are able to, if the person is able to succeed from that.
Yeah.
But if they're just going to be like, oh, I'm crashing on my, the thing is like,
did you raise a good kid or not? If you raised a piece of shit, they're going to be a piece of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you very well could run into that.
But well, it's not just parents; it's like siblings.
We were just using a stay at your parents' house scenario.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, you're right.
And there's a lot of, and you're right. There's a lot of nuance to this because some parents I've seen like enable a kid to virtually be homeless once the parents can't take care of them or they pass away, and it's like that's crazy. Like you,
what do I do now?
You clip their wings until they were 50. Like I've seen these situations, and then but there's other people who are like, you never gave that person enough support.
Yeah.
You never helped them.
Mm-hmm.
You never set them up to succeed in any way. And you don't want to fix this.
To compare it, this is a touchy subject.
Yeah.
No, I don't know how people are gonna take it. But there's a conversation about and I think they were trying this in San Francisco.
Yeah.
But there's a conversation about it's cheaper to just give people housing than it is to like criminalize homelessness.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm supportive of giving people free housing. Housing should be free. It's a right. Right. But at the same time, there's this thing that they were trying, this pilot program in San Francisco, where like they were giving people access to housing, but there were all of these stipulations about it. I don't want to misrepresent what actually happened, the truth of the matter. So I'll just say this. There are people that believe that just giving people housing is like, you just give people housing and then you wash your hands of it and be done. It's like, you can't really do that, especially with people that have probably mental disorders or drug addiction or whatever other circumstances. There are people that if you just gave them a house and said like, here you go, you're free. Like, you don't have to worry about paying for it for a year or whatever. Though there are so many people that can take that opportunity and like excel. There are people that can take that, but you're right. It's probably not a lot of people, but there's also people, it's like, I hate citing things because I have the information, but I don't have the source. And it's always like,
Right.
But like, I remember reading this thing about a homeless person that was going into a program to get employment benefits, and they had trouble filling out the forms. And essentially what they were saying is there's 4 levels of communication in the English language. There's like informal, formal, and like one other one. And those are the formal and informal and formal are the 2 middle. And then there's 2 outside of that, right? That are even less formal and even more formal.
Like hither?
Yeah. One of them has to do with like science, like it has to do with like professional jargon.
Should we wait?
Oh, okay.
That's like even more than formal.
Got it.
Actually, if we're waiting, I'm just going to Google it.
And then below informal is like slang,
Yeah.
colloquial,
Yeah.
commoner.
Yeah, that I'm pretty sure that's the definition of what they gave. But essentially what they said was, in the English language, if somebody is speaking to you in a way that's too more than what you're used to. So like if you're at a
Slang level.
If you're at a slang level and somebody's talking to you in formal language, you can't. It's like speaking Spanish to them when you only speak English. Like they don't understand it. So like there were people that were trying to fill out these forms they're formally written and they're asking for things that these people just don't understand. So now you have a percentage of people that could benefit from the housing program, but they need the support in these other areas where they need to be able to apply for jobs. They need to gain literacy levels, most likely. They need to understand. They need classes on how to function in a professional setting or a formal setting. Even like applications for places, even like Taco Bell or entry level jobs at a fast food place or a coffee shop. Like the application is gonna read formally because it's gonna be
Right.
they want to create the perception that this is a professional place.
Right.
So that's all part of it. So then you have that percentage of people that need that support, right?
Involved.
Then you have what?
I said there's also like legal stuff involved, like
Right. So everything needs to be worded carefully.
Yeah.
But if you're not used to that environment, if you dropped out of school and like you don't understand how to read that language.
Oh, you think I can't read that language because I dropped out of school? Fool.
Yeah.
You dropped out of school?
Yeah, dog. I read better than y'all.
But
Just kidding. That's just because you're blind.
it just is like the point that I'm trying to get at is like to what Ricky is saying is like there are people that require certain levels of support and
right.
but that doesn't mean that you just let somebody stay on your couch
Right.
Yeah.
for any length of time without seeing that they are actually trying to better their situation.
Because that's ultimately like, you can't, lead a horse to water type stuff, but you can't force someone to change and grow and face these things. Especially you have to have clear rules on like what the support comes with and what there's expectations. It's harder. The problem with why people are so against this stuff is because all the damage has been done. when you're an adult, when
Mhm.
you're not a little kid. Like when you're trying to help adults or young adults or basically teenagers to like very old people that are homeless, this is like extreme situations, right? Like the failures happened 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 10
Mhm.
years ago. And it's the same thing of like, oh, they weren't supported from the beginning. And then you criticize the failures because there was a lack of support from the beginning, justifying the lack of support at the end. And it's because there's not enough of it in the beginning in general.
Yeah, it's the whole don't judge a
Book. By
don't
its-
judge a fish
By its
by its
ability,
ability to climb.
yeah.
That was so, that felt like a knee jerk reaction. Like I can read, God damn it.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's just like, look, there are people that can accomplish a lot. What were you gonna say?
Lead a horse to water, fish for climbing. This whole time I've been waiting to say, but you know what happens when you give a mouse a cookie?
Stupid.
He's going to want a apartment.
Basically, yeah.
Somebody tweeted.
He's gonna have free healthcare.
Yeah. That's what that's about.
But I understand that like concern because there are people like that. There's always going to be people like that.
I've been that person.
Yeah, but it's so interesting
Moose
that
a
like
muffin.
the cost of being afraid of that behavior is like mass homelessness in city centers. Like you're so afraid of some people getting an easier, and ultimately all these people that are like concerned of those people of taking advantage are either sometimes embarrassed or ashamed of being that person, or secretly jealous of people that got some help.
There's this.
I think there's another thing that gets overlooked too, which not having a home is a huge problem.
Yes.
And a huge hurdle, and it's very difficult.
right.
But it's not the problem. Like that's their home. They're not them not having a house. Putting them in a home isn't just going to.
Absolutely.
That's not the.
No, but that's
not
what
the
I'm
fix.
saying. That's
Yeah.
not it. But the
I
thing is that
understand.
it's different for everybody.
It's a horrible
because,
thing to have to go through, and I wish everyone could have a house. I think homeless people should just break into homes that aren't being used and just live there. California, we got squatters' rights.
Dude, that's called squatting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
squatters' rights is not quite that, but
No, yeah, that's something different.
I know. It's about not being evicted or something.
But
like that.
but I get that. It's just I feel like I'm losing that point. But
no, you're not.
No,
I mean, the
you're
thing
making
is
a
that it's
100% correct point. I just think it's important to remember that the reason that someone's homeless isn't just because they don't have a house.
Absolutely. But
But that's also like
to
something
even
Dominic
scrape
said
out of it.
earlier.
Yeah.
Because there are programs where they just provided shelter and then it alleviates, immediate strain, but not long term strain. Like they come back, like shelters in general, they stay there. It gets overcrowded. There's no room for people, so a lot of them leave, and then it's kind of a thing of like they're all competing for a cot.
So in Baldwin Park, and Ryan can tell you more about the stipulations about it because we were talking about this the other day.
Right.
Because I actually want to have him on, but one of our old friends from high school is the mayor of Baldwin Park, and he instituted. He was the youngest person to be elected.
Really?
Yeah, his name is
Elected
Emmanuel
official?
Estrada, and he was elected at 26.
damn.
Ice King.
Ice King. He's doing a lot of good for.
I'm just joking.
For,
I'm just joking.
for
Just
Baldwin
cut that
Park.
out.
And I think recently, like a year or two ago, he was reelected.
Yeah, he was
Nice.
reelected because he's anyway.
He's good at his job.
He brought a tiny home project to Baldwin Park. I could be wrong because I don't know if that was something that the previous mayor was presenting and then he
We
took
could
it
look it
over. But because I know there was a couple programs that the last mayor had that he took over, but one of the programs in Baldwin Park is a tiny home project, and it's
A home for ants.
shut the fuck up. It's 25.
It needs to be at
Homes.
least 100 times bigger.
So, but what they did was they replaced shelters with tiny homes so that people have their own space.
That's
I think
cool.
they just share like restroom facilities,
Yeah. That's
and
definitely
maybe
a step
a
in the right
kitchen.
direction.
Yeah, that's cool.
But what they do is like there's to qualify. There's certain things that you have to follow. So like you get a space for yourself, for your stuff. And like one of the rules that I know about is there's an 11 o'clock curfew and there's no guests, so you can't bring people onto the thing, which kind of sucks
So-
if you're somebody that's like trying to bring your mom or your
Right.
friend. But it's the
So they're
rules in
being, like,
place.
policed.
What's that?
They're being like watched.
Um,
I don't
Sort
want to
of.
poke holes in this. I was just asking because it
No,
sounded like
tiny
it.
homes is kind of something that I would say not directly, but has like at least in the places that are experimenting with it, have replaced shelters,
Okay.
and it's a more effective, a more not hands on approach, but more thorough approach. But at the same time, it's still volunteer run.
I would
Okay,
say like to that point of like, I hear what you're saying about it being
Yeah.
being policed, like they're being watched. I don't know that much about the program, but I do know that they've started because it's a new program,
Okay.
and they've started releasing like results about how like people are finding housing afterwards
Oh,
and they're
that's cool.
finding employment. So like, but I do think like to that thing about like the whole thing of like not having guests over, because in my head I'm like, if somebody is an addict or if somebody is like, what they're doing is like they're preventing situations where people are inviting over. It just takes one
Right.
person that can fuck it up for everybody.
You're right.
Yeah,
No, no, I totally understand the
Yeah.
reason for the rules. I just always wonder how they enforce them.
Yeah, I know that it's run by a volunteer program. They probably have a check in, check out kind of a
Yeah.
situation.
Kind of on the same thing. Like I've seen some videos recently about like these people who run a halfway home
Uh-huh.
and they like keep document of everything via video. They like make vlogs and stuff. And so like they have the situations where random people are calling the police on people in the house and being like, they're doing bad stuff or they're doing this thing. And like the cops will come check and they'll be like, he's right here. He just ate a good
Yeah.
meal. He's like, I'm the happiest I've ever been in six months. Or
But you know what probably
Stuff like that.
happens is that like people in the neighborhood see like
yes.
yeah,
somebody that
unsavory types.
Yeah.
And
Is that
then,
bad to say?
and then they end up back on the streets if that wasn't caught. And people are
Right.
like, these people don't even want a home. They just want to stay on the streets. And it's like, screw it. If this keeps happening to me, maybe I'll just do drugs. Like,
You know what's a
this
good
is-
show that deals with this? And I don't know how accurate it is.
I feel like I'm gonna guess it.
What?
Cops.
The
No.
Last OG.
The Last OG.
I don't know about
Have you
that.
seen that? It's a Tracy Morgan show.
No.
It was
No.
on TBS. I think it's on Netflix. It's a great show.
Go check it out. It's like it's like a show like
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
Okay.
it's
Like a
him.
what is it
What's her
called?
name? Tiffany
One camera
Haddish.
Oh.
sitcom.
single cam.
Single cam sitcom, yeah. Tracy Morgan, Tiffany Haddish, Cedric
Okay.
the Entertainer. It's a great show. It's really funny and like, but they deal with like his character. He got arrested in the 90s and then he's released
Mm.
in like 2018
Yeah.
or whatever. And so like whenever the show started, it was like it's a couple years old. But he's been in there for like 20, 30 years. So now he comes out and he has 2 kids and he's essentially trying to better his life, trying to reconnect with his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend.
It's like fish out of water.
Yeah, yeah. He comes back to New York and it's gentrified and
Right.
like he
Some classic
it's a
culture
different
shock.
world. Yeah, culture shock kind of a thing. But he stays in a halfway house as part of his parole. And so they deal with that a lot of like he has to find work, he has to find a job to be able to stay at this house and like all kinds of stuff. So like it's a funny show and if people are interested in what I'm talking about, I feel like this is a glimpse at like what the experience is. How I don't know exactly how accurate it
Right.
is.
It's a
but
comedy.
yeah, exactly. That's why.
Cool. I should check it out.
Yeah, sounds cool. Yeah, that being said, I used to kick it with some unsavory types.
Right.
And I know people who want to be street people.
Yeah.
And they like that street life for whatever reason.
I mean,
and maybe I'm like, who wouldn't take a mansion for free or whatever, you know what I mean?
right.
But
Also, just to be clear, nobody's giving away mansions like that.
no, I was just saying when you have no home,
Oh,
a
that-
1-bedroom studio is like the high life.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
But-
I've been there.
Wait, keep going with what you were saying.
I was just gonna say that I do know people who actively are like, oh, I don't want any support from anyone. Like, I'm cool right here on the side of the fucking street.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's an issue?
I know that there's like, dude, I don't know, man. I'm a free spirited kind of guy, so like, I've known people. Every now and then, you get some people who are like just want to go walk off into the woods and live in the woods. You know what I mean?
There was this post.
R.I.P. the homie.
There was this. Really?
Yeah, I went into the woods, got ate by a bear or something.
Oh, fuck. Just gloss over this story.
Yeah.
I like how you just threw that out there as R.I.P. the
That's
homie.
the real problem.
Yeah.
Bears
Bears.
luring people in with their picnic baskets and then murdering and eating
But
them.
yeah, there's a lot of people who do that kind of thing. They're like want to be. They just want to be that way.
So-
a high
so-
percentage.
I understand that exists.
Yeah.
No, that definitely does exist. And some people are nomadic. Some people just like traveling the country,
Again,
traveling
small
around.
number.
Yeah, but there are people that just like living on the like. I
Mhm.
remember seeing a post, and it was kind of like a people of New York kind of a thing. It wasn't people of New York, I don't think, but it was a guy like this. He was talking to this guy that was homeless, and the homeless guy was saying that this is where it gets in, because I know people are probably going to call it out about unhoused people.
Mhm.
I disagree with the term unhoused people. The whole point is to say like anywhere could be a home, but unhoused. It's a semantics
It's
thing.
like because we're saying homeless.
Yeah, I don't look whatever.
I heard you're supposed to say transient, but that sounds worse.
that sounds
to me.
worse.
But I don't know.
Anyway, there's a whole
Bums.
thing about people.
Hobos.
That's specifically trained people.
Yeah, come on.
You should know that one.
Insensitive. They're not all hobos.
Anyway, the point is, this is where I agree with the term unhoused people, because this guy that they were interviewing was like essentially saying like how happy he is to not have a house, like to not have a home, because he was saying like living on the street. He's like I wake up, I do whatever I want. Like I go out, I walk around the city.
Is this the mole people of Las Vegas?
I don't think so.
Oh.
But essentially, he was like, I don't have to stress about work. I don't have to stress about paying bills. I don't have stress in my life. So I get out.
Yeah.
I enjoy the sun.
Yeah.
I get exercise. I eat when I can. Like I'm living in the present. Like saying stuff like that. And the thing is like, especially in the United States, and I'm sure this exists in other parts of the world, but especially in the United States, there's this idea of like the whole keeping up with the Joneses of like, this is how the nuclear family functions. This is how society functions, is you check all of these boxes along the route of your life, and this is how you live a correct life. And there is a thing of like, people do want to be on the streets. There are definitely people that would rather live in a tent.
So saying that homelessness is a problem is really classist.
Wow, interesting.
wow.
Wow.
I mean, there is a housing.
Josh.
Hold on. But the truth is that there is a housing crisis. Like,
Yeah.
there are, to say that there are, because there are people that do choose to be homeless. I know that's not what you're saying, but it's like, that's not the argument that we're making. I have to be clear, because people are going to be like,
Right.
oh, you like, people like to look at one type of person and then say, this is how they're all
Yeah,
hobos.
like.
I was being sarcastic about going down the list of different terms.
But anyway,
but that
everybody's different. The thing is, like, everybody's different, and a lot of what we've been talking about this whole time is like the pressures of, I will concede and say, modern capitalism, of like whatever idealized version of capitalism that somebody might have. I'm not going to talk about that, but in the present system that we exist in where we are meant to be kept down, where working class people, poor people, homeless people, marginalized people are meant to be kept down, so that
where
the people
even actors are like, I didn't make any money off that hit show. Like, even in the writers and actors strike, it's like, if actors and writers are going to lose their homes in a strike, of course there's unhoused people.
Yeah, imagine how hard it is for anyone else to survive.
Like,
USA. USA.
Well, that's another thing, is like that's the first of like more, not that they're all connected, but like UPS is supposed to be striking soon.
Dude, they're going to shut that shit down.
UPS?
The government is going to shut down their
they're going to send in the
strike.
National Guard.
Oh, their strike.
Because UPS Teamsters specifically are calling for a strike. UPS, one of the biggest like shipping companies in the country, if in the world. The thing is, if the Teamsters strike, because they shut down the railroad union a couple months ago, they derailed the rail workers strike.
Got milk commercial.
They derailed the railroad.
Shut up. I feel like if it
You got me earlier. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. If UPS strikes, it's one thing, but if the Teamsters as a whole, if just trucks and transportation in general strikes, that's going to be huge. That will UPS is already going to fuck things up by striking. Why did we bring up the strike?
You did.
I brought it up.
Oh, did you?
I brought it up because
actors.
it's like
Oh, right.
basically, yeah, everything's hitting a breaking point, and then we're just like, yeah, they just don't want a house, and it's like, get a house, and then you can't afford it anyway. Like
The last 2 years, Starbucks and Amazon were fighting for unions, and those unions were getting busted. But it's like it's a continuous thing where it's happening everywhere with everyone, and it's not just it's not just Gen Z, it's not just millennials. It's like everyone in the working class is feeling this right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's the whole idea of like we were touching back at the very beginning of when we started talking about this, is that like people have been fed this idea of like, here's the boxes you have to check, here's how to be a good person, here's how to strive in capitalism, here's how you show your value as a worker and as a honorable person with integrity is you show up to work and you don't complain about anything.
Yeah.
And
then you get ripped.
Yeah.
You get ripped off.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I feel like the quarantine like really shone a light on a lot of things, like made it more clear to a lot more people of how unfair this system that we exist in is. It just showed more than ever. These things have been growing, but it really like pushed the needle down hard on like, this is a broken system. I had a better phrase for what I was going to say, but like it's a broken system that we exist in. It's a fallacy. There's no social mobility anymore. Like social mobility is like a farce at this point. There are people, the people that are able to kind of eke their way out are a lot fewer and further between.
Yeah. I know Josh is giving some eyebrows right now, but it's like
we're like deep in concepts here for me.
So basically, the way I'm starting to see it, because I'm right there with Dominic, but it's like even a person with $1 million, even them can lose everything and be right here with us so much quicker, than someone with 500 million or $1 billion. Like even a millionaire, barely a millionaire, can lose everything and be right back here, like at the bottom, unhoused. Like I know that's a lot of money, but actually a house is $1 million. Your money's gone.
Yeah.
Like, and you lose that job or whatever you had to get there.
I guess I don't understand. It's like to me, it's like you're saying somebody with 10 sandwiches, they could eat 10 sandwiches and then they ain't got no sandwiches.
Yeah, I know it sounds really dumb, but
not that it sounds dumb. I just mean like, yeah, if you waste all your money, you're not going to have any.
No, but it's talking about security. There's no security in reaching $1 million in modern like.
I think that sounds crazy. If any of us had $1 million given to us right now,
the basic
we'd be
way
secure.
Another comparison is like
I think.
Hold on. There's a word for this, and it's inflation.
Have you ever gotten sick?
Yeah.
And what happens when you get really sick, and how expensive is that hospital stay?
Oh, don't go to the hospital.
Yeah, why?
I hate it.
Yeah, but why?
Because that's where people die.
That's where people die. And why do they die?
You could die anywhere, dude.
They can't afford it.
They can't afford.
I'd rather die anywhere.
They can't afford preventative care.
But it's, I don't know.
To me, that's a weird thing.
People wait to go to the hospital until it's too late. Until like it's way.
But if I'm right now and I get sick,
yeah,
and then like alternate universe me has $1 million and he gets sick. That guy's probably going to be better off.
Oh, absolutely. But if the cost is $500,000 or more, you're about to.
Yeah, $1 million has never been that much money though.
The point
that's something that I was. If I can just add like another comparative is like 150 years ago, that was the most attainable money anyone could ever think of, like as a possibility.
Right.
And now that's like
we've blown the lid off on that.
When you look at the upper class, that's like towards the bottom of that hierarchy.
It's like they're inventing.
Bottom.
It's
yeah.
I know these numbers. I know numbers exist and all this stuff exists.
And we're getting lost in the weeds a little bit.
These are concepts, but I just mean like it's like they're inventing numbers so that they could make more money, like so that they could feel better.
That's what
about
it feels
the
like
amount
on
of
this
wealth
end.
that they have.
Because that's what it feels like on our
it starts
end.
to feel that way because it's like as long as the divide is far enough, like it doesn't matter if people are making $1 million. If the divide is that huge, you're never going to scrape that.
But
like,
what we're talking about is
gotten
inflation. Like at the end of it all, it's just like the rate of inflation has gone so high that like it is just it's reaching points of like money goes a lot. It doesn't go as nearly as far as even when we're experiencing this right now with the cost of food and the cost of gas, where gas is like getting close to $5 a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
Before, you used to be able to fill up your tank with $5, like get half a tank with $5. I remember being a kid and like $20 would last you a week, at least. I'm talking, but that combined with miles per gallon and all that stuff.
Yeah,
right.
But anyway,
yeah, I don't know.
There's also a thing of just like people. It's a thing that I didn't realize till I was an adult was a thing for a long time, but it was also a thing I didn't think other people had to deal with. Connected to what Don was saying, there's stuff like people not working in the same cities that they live in, that they're hours apart because the places that pay enough to sustain where they're at financially are, that far apart.
Dude, I remember like on job applications, like it would like, are you willing to travel? And it would start with like 10 miles. Now they all start with 25 miles.
Right.
Yeah. That's something that some companies work on. Company I work for, I don't know if this might get cut, but the company I work for does that. They help with local hire.
Right.
It's a big part of poverty in cities. A lot of people commute in, take the money from that city and leave.
That's what you're talking about. Is like that was one of the reasons why I feel so like wrong to have this concern, but like when we talk about having the what's it called, the speed rail from LA to San Francisco, I was like, fuck that, dude. We shouldn't have a speed rail. In reality, that would be fucking awesome to have a speed rail. To have to wait, a couple minutes or hours to go to San Francisco instead of an 8-hour trip.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. But immediately my first initial thought was like, fuck that shit. It shouldn't be, because that means that San Francisco, which is the most expensive city in the country to live in, people are going to come to LA for work. Oh no, they were gonna
opposite. People are
gonna live in LA.
The commute is gonna be insane.
To San Francisco.
It's gonna be packed because everyone's gonna go work in San Francisco and come back out to places where they
but it's gonna fuck up everybody's. It's gonna fuck up the housing in Los Angeles as a byproduct of that. Is like rent in Los Angeles is gonna go higher,
right?
Because people that are making way more money are living in a cheaper place,
and all the people, and the money that is right now staying in San Francisco is going to leave.
Exactly. And that's going to create higher rates of poverty in the city. So it's like, it sucks to have to fucking be red-pilled in this way. What?
But think of all the cool Instagram videos.
Dude, all the TikToks.
And the reels we'll be able to make on the speed train.
I mean, content is content, dog. But it sucks that we live in a society where like that is like the thought, like that's what jumps out of like it's a real concern,
and this is why population needs to get limited.
Yikes!
You've been listening to Bill Gates or what?
So it's more controllable.
Bill Gates says that?
No, there's a whole thing about Bill Gates.
Oh.
There's this conspiracy theory about
that
how
he like started
he's
COVID.
pro population control.
Yeah, I remember that.
Um,
Nah, this guy's a dork. Bill Gates.
I know who that is.
He
anyway,
invented the computer.
I kind of right now as we wrap up,
All right.
I wanna bring it back. I don't know. We went from staying in a home with family to
Because it
bigger
all kinda
economic
ties together.
it does
at
all
the end
kind
of
of
the
tie
day.
together. But I think what I want to say is like, you know, with families, I think like with everything, I think it's all a balance. I think you have to understand it's so hard in a working class Latino household where you're the only one or you're one of few that thinks this way, and everything is a constant battle to have these conversations. One of the things I want to say, I say this all the time, and it's always paraphrased, but my friend sent me this this excerpt from a book one time, and I couldn't even tell you the book, but she sent me this thing from a book that like I feel applies to so many things. And what?
I was just thinking it's the Bible.
And God loved the world so much that He gave His only.
Is that the only Bible verse you know?
Probably.
Rub-a-dub-a-dub.
Thanks for the grub.
Yeah,
Psalms
God.
8.
John 3:14.
Eat, pray, love. Damn it! I thought more people were gonna pitch it. I thought that was gonna hit hard.
It's because you made it sound like you had a
I had more, but then everyone looked at me.
Waiting
We're waiting
for
on
the
the drop.
punchline,
Yeah.
huh?
Go ahead.
Eat, pray, love. 2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians.
I was gonna be like, eat, pray, love. Or no, it was like live, laugh, love, fucking carpe diem. And I was gonna go through a whole list and end up.
Well, the moment has passed. Anyway, fuck. Now what was I saying? Oh, the
Bible
I'm
verse.
paraphrasing
A book.
the excerpt, but it was essentially saying when you're used to a life of abuse, when you're used to toxic love, and then you experience healthy love for the first time, you reject it because to allow yourself to accept that love means that you have to acknowledge that the love that you were accepting before was abuse, and your brain won't allow you to accept that abuse as abuse, because if you acknowledge and accept that was abuse and you stayed there for so long, then that means that you allowed yourself to be abused, and you would never do that to yourself.
Because it's not just forgiving
Yeah.
other people; you have to forgive yourself.
Right.
Damn, she might have been trying to smash, bro. Sorry.
Well, but I mean,
That's what it was funny.
I love that. That's what Josh took out of this.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
but she was just like, your girlfriend's so toxic.
Like,
It's just
I
like-
think I might love you.
But no, the whole point to that is like what we're talking about, and especially with traditional parents or parents or Latino families, Latino families that don't view things this way or that have issues with these things, is like, for a lot of people, it's like being fucking red pilled. It's like you don't see that.
You stay in the matrix.
You stay in the matrix, and you want to
Yeah.
stay in the matrix because it's more comfortable, because you don't have to confront reality. And it doesn't make you better than somebody to see how these things are harmful. In a lot of ways, it just makes things fucking harder for you, to be honest.
in some ways.
But it is a thing of like, I feel like that's kind of I haven't fully figured out how to do it with my own family, but it is like, you have to be able to have conversations with people in a way that's like, there was a thing that Ram Dass talks about where he says like, when you it's not your job to enlighten everybody. It's
a funny thing. It's a funny quote to say.
Oh, because he's a spiritual teacher?
Yeah, and you're being like, it's a thing that Ram Dass says, you don't have to enlighten everyone.
No.
And then using that as like a thing to tell us.
Listen, there's a level of irony to it.
Yeah,
Sure.
But even the nature of a
I was just
podcast
kidding.
is like the people that want to will come. You don't have to chase them down and be like, you need to be like this.
Maybe
But-
that's a marketing strategy that we
It's
should
also-
try is to like run around with headphones and be like,
Listen to
my
it.
fucking show.
I used to do that with music when I was young. I used to drive around the mall and be like, "What do you think about this song?" And people would be like, "It sounds all right." And I'd be like, "We made this." In the car full of
I
friends.
had a guy download half of his mixtape onto my phone one time before I stood up for myself.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was too much.
Just a random guy.
Yeah, he's like, I made this on my phone, and I listened to it. It sounded like he made it on his phone.
yeah, that's so good. I feel like that thing you were saying is something that like Ryan says a lot about, like if you don't admit something, then you're the reason. God, I can't remember all the right words, but it was like along the lines of what you were saying with that quote. Like if you acknowledge that this thing was bad, then you have to acknowledge that you're the person putting
That
yourself.
you allowed yourself to
yeah.
be there.
I feel
And
like
most
you say
people
something
don't
like
want to
that
do
sometimes.
that. Like they
No.
don't, whether
It
they
sucks.
recognize it consciously or subconsciously, it's like nobody wants to feel like a fool. And so
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will argue against something. They will argue in favor of something that's harmful to them because if you view it any way other than how they see it,
It's very
I understand that.
Also,
probably more than
it
anyone
reminds
else.
me of the one part that I actually liked of Matrix 4, but it's because you said red pilling, which is also, I don't know if this is how you're using it, but the red pill is the wake up pill. The blue pill is the sleep pill.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is something I want to say to those people that are resilient to this idea because of that fact of like, it's always going to be hard to acknowledge that. It's always going to feel painful. It's like that thing with the release of like, when you have something pent up for so long and then you release it, it's going to feel rough at first.
I told Ryan that learning I have ADHD is the worst thing that happened to me in my life.
Yeah, but the thing about that is like as much as you want to wish that you would have. This is something that's said in the first movie and then like sort of reset in a different way in the fourth movie of the Matrix franchise. But it's like you can't go back, even if you try to choose to ignore it. A part of you knows what's actually happening. You know, even if you take the blue pill, you still can't unsee what you saw that led to that epiphany in the first place, to lead that acknowledgement in the first place. And when you choose to blue pill, all you're doing is choosing to be unhappy because you're always going to have that barrier in front of you.
Just to keep talking about the Matrix, I think it's funny when people use these terms anyways, because in the movie they explain that those pills have nothing to do with that. That the blue pill or the whatever pill makes you go to sleep just knocks you out, and then you just go back to your regular life thinking it was a dream. The other pill, he says, it literally says the pill you took's a part of a trace program.
Right.
Like it has nothing to do with
Like the
waking
pills
up or
themselves
anything like that.
are illusions.
It's literally just a tracing thing.
just
So-
like
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
It's a way to acknowledge, but
we
in
go.
this same very,
I love the
like
Matrix.
in this same vein, it's like it's a metaphor to understand the concept,
Right. I
and
know.
that's the thing is
I
like
was just talking about the Matrix.
what?
I was just talking about the Matrix. That's what I was saying.
No, I know, but I'm using it to reel it back into the conversation. And that's what I'm saying is like it's an illusion to understand the concept, and regardless of which path you take that with the context that you can't let go of.
I think it tastes like tasty wheat.
How do you think the machines know what tasty wheat tasted like?
Maybe that's why they couldn't get chicken right, and that's why chicken tastes like everything.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
God,
I know.
We did it,
dude.
guys.
We
We did
almost had it, dude. We
it's
almost
funny
had
that
it.
you said that one because you have the fucking.
Bowl of snot.
Well, this has been fun.
We should leave a last comment. Like,
What's your favorite part of the Matrix?
Yeah, that's
What's your favorite part of the Matrix? Well, I will say just to like, this is the technical end of this recording, but enjoy the first half of this shit we're
Oh.
going to cut to right now. What would be your NPC like character, do you think? If you guys were doing that, you know what we're talking about? The
Yes.
NPC girlfriend thing?
Yes.
Because like
I was sent that, yeah.
I've seen people do like this one guy does it where he's like all of them are related to he's gonna fight you.
Beating up his girlfriend.
Like so you give him gifts and he'll call out your name and be like square up.
That's and he's like doing the same thing. Like he's like,
doing the same thing. He's doing the like
every time a thing
wave.
triggers, and he's like
Yeah.
cutting himself off like an old like a soundboard.
Like
yeah.
like
So crazy.
but it's also like Oblivion graphics.
Yeah.
Like physics.
There's one guy
Yeah.
there's somebody that's doing like a Spider-Man version. Like they dress up as Spider-Man and they just do like
Oh, I thought you said S Spider-Man.
a Spider-Man.
So that whole NPC girlfriend thing's crazy. I missed the wave on it, so I just barely like found out about it a couple of days ago, and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, my sister sent me one about a guy goes in and talks to the girlfriend at the table. She's like, my boyfriend's playing video games and he doesn't spend time with me. I don't think he loves me anymore. And the guy goes to talk to the boyfriend at the couch playing video games, like, hey, would you want to play with me? You know? And he's like, your girlfriend feels lonely. It's like, oh. And he goes to tell the girlfriend, and she's like, okay, I'll go sit over there. And he turns around, and she's already at the couch.
I know the videos you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
I know the videos, but we're talking about a different thing that's like
Oh,
like
wait,
the-
you're talking about. I was like, did they?
he's
put a whole
talking
scene
about like
together?
yeah. There's people who do that thing where it's like
Oh, like
they're-
the guy that does GTA.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, yeah.
There's a guy that there's like it's like a group of like 3 or 4 people, but there's a guy that will like do videos where he's like running around a beach as if he's in GTA.
Yeah, and they like clip into the walls and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I saw.
jump.
I can't
Mhm.
confirm if this is the actual people, but I'm pretty sure the voices from GTA 5 reenact scenes from that game.
They do.
Oh,
I've seen that.
That might be.
No,
Oh,
it's not
that's-
them. Well, I mean,
Oh.
I don't know if maybe that's what you're talking about, but I've seen videos of people doing that thing where they're like, if this video game was real, kind of a thing, and they're like like walking into a wall,
Yeah, they'll
like
just
that kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of more along the lines of what you're talking about, where it's like people acting like NPCs. But this thing,
So you don't know about the AI girlfriend?
I guess
This is
not.
like a thing. It's funny because I can understand why that's confusing, because it's like the same thing.
Oh,
in a
he just said,
yeah,
okay, yeah. No,
Um,
so these people go on TikTok Live. I'm sure that there was a category of this on like Twitch streams,
I'm sure.
but this is a thing. So so you've been on TikTok. You've seen people on TikTok Live, right? Like,
Oh, for sure, yeah.
okay, so
I'm
people
there.
on TikTok. Okay, so on TikTok Live, you can give people gifts, right? You give roses, you give coins, you give like, and some of them little animations will pop up. Like you give
somebody dog ears, or you give somebody a cowboy
cowboy
hat,
hat.
which is the one that.
So there's this new trend of like the AI girlfriend. I don't even know if it's AI girlfriend. I'm pretty sure it comes from somewhere else. There's like it's very big in like Japanese gaming culture streams. I don't know culture, but like there's a category of it, and it's just like girls will go on and they do this thing. They all do this thing. Excuse me, sorry,
No worries.
but they all do this thing where they act like they're like floating, like characters do it in a video
Interesting.
game, where they like do these like
Like real Shenmue graphics, like from Dreamcast, like old,
Yeah.
outdated, like idle animations.
exactly. So they're doing that with their hands like this, and then like people will be giving like roses. So then there's like it's predominantly it's women, but they're all doing like, oh, thank you for the roses, thank you for the roses, ice cream. And
I get your references now.
Yeah, and so like it literally like the reason I was saying like a soundboard, like when you keep clicking the button, it like restarts the saying.
Yeah.
Like they're getting so many donations of the same thing that like she's doing the same.
they have their own sound, like a soundboard. Like they have their own thing for every gift you
Yeah.
can give them.
So like she gets the cowboy hat and she's like, ride him cowboy, something, and she's doing it 4 or 5 times because she's getting a bunch of them, and then
I should do this.
dude, it's pretty crazy.
Dude, no, here's the thing.
I pulled it up. Do you
So
wanna see?
I saw the first person, this might be telling about my algorithm, but the first person I saw was a person named Cherry Crush, who's a porn star. And she also does ASMR videos. So she
Okay.
was doing that. And it's just like a weird thing. It's obviously a way to get people to give you gifts so that you can make money. But this is the thing, is that on Twitter, there's this person called Pinky Doll, right? I think that's her name.
TikTok.
No. Okay,
okay,
so she's
okay.
on TikTok.
All right, my bad.
There's a whole section of Twitter where there's Twitter pages dedicated to like wild TikTok screenshots, and like people share TikToks
gotcha.
on Twitter. So like Twitter treats TikTok like a different country that they borrow content from, right?
Right.
So like,
Oh, TikTok's their 4chan.
yeah.
Yeah, I get.
I mean,
I get that reference.
So the whole, but the whole point is that like on Twitter, people brought up this girl like, oh, they're losing their minds on TikTok. They do this with
Right.
Facebook too, about how like how crazy it is on Facebook. So they're like, TikTok's losing their mind or something like that, and it's this woman named Pinky Doll, and this on Twitter it went viral.
That's the first person I ever saw.
Yeah, and it's a black woman, and like she's doing the same thing, and it's like very like it's that, and then it's like you're saying like the Ride 'em Cowboy.
Yeah,
or,
like
the,
that's what I was literally quoting. Like she's doing
Yeah.
this thing where she's like, "Ice cream so good, ice cream so good."
Yeah,
Like
thank you.
thank
for the
you,
roses.
something shout out, something shout out. But it's not like it's very like that NPC like
gotta-
what you were saying. That
You
yeah,
gotta just
I
show 'em a
did.
clip.
I brought it up, so it's right here, ready to go.
Oh, interesting.
It's very crazy. Oh, the other thing is that she's doing it for 2 hours straight.
They do them for
Like,
a
It's
long
that's
time.
an
So-
impressive.
It's so impressive.
But so everybody's talking shit on her on Twitter, and I'm sure on TikTok. But I hadn't seen any of the conversations on TikTok. I only saw it on Twitter. But everybody's talking shit, and then somebody like did the math, and they found out that like she's making $4,000 to $7,000. Some people say she's making like $2,000 per stream, and some people are saying she's making up to $7,000 a month doing this.
wow.
That's crazy.
It's interesting because like sometimes I think about like when someone can make that much money doing that. I was like, could I even if I can get that much money, could I sustain that
Dude, so many people because
Like
of that.
specific performance?
Dude, it's like the new trend. Everybody's doing it. And the thing is that's crazy is that I've seen like 10 people, like seriously, like 10 different people. One, they'll post like, hey, if she's making this much money, if you see me, if I pop up on your For You live, like just know I'm trying to pay my bills. Like so many people have said that.
I feel it.
And it's like it's women, men are finding ways to do it. Like different people are finding, and now everybody's finding their own because it's like a man can't do like a cute whatever. I mean, they could, but
Whoa.
like
Because like in
I ain't
Japan,
watching
they
it.
have those like cafes for like men and
yeah,
women to get
that's
like,
what this is.
like the boyfriend or girlfriend experience.
That's where this comes from.
Yeah.
Like that whole.
I see.
That whole kind of whatever it is.
Lonely
We're all
culture.
lonely now.
Lonely
Lonely
culture.
culture.
But that's
We're
where
all
that comes
lonely,
from.
baby.
I was gonna say there's also this weird, like, not I wouldn't say obsession, but there's weird subgenre of the internet that's like mimicking simulated
Yeah.
reality. Like, because this isn't the first trend that's dealt with something in this area. There's tons of adjacent to this, and something that happened a little bit earlier, but it didn't blow up as much. Is this woman who does AI glitch, where it's a similar idea, but it's not. She's not playing an NPC. She's playing like an artificial intelligence,
Mhm. I've seen
and
that.
her
Mhm.
bit is that she glitches.
But it's but this is the idea of like this. It's kind of like what's that? The movie Gamer. You seen that movie
No, I haven't.
with Gerard Butler? So a big part of that movie is that Gerard Butler is controlled. He's a playable character in a game where he's controlled by some high school kid, right?
Yeah.
In that world, right, there's instead of playing simulations, it's moved on from just playing like The Sims, where now you're playing The Sims, but you're controlling real humans. That's part of the gaming universe. And like Gerard Butler's wife in the movie, he's in prison, but his wife, to like make money, she's a character, and she's one of the most popular characters, and she's owned by this like loser nerd gamer dude, like slobby guy.
It's funny because I would believe that. Like, nerds can make so much money in a game.
Yeah.
Like you ever get so good at a game, you're like, wow, this is really affecting my real life. Like, I'm making so much money in this game.
That I'm losing money in my life.
Yeah.
But that's But that's where this comes from of like, so it's like a step above the fantasy because it's like, at first they're creating the girlfriend fantasy video game, right? And it's like, so that like nerdy, like you're saying, like lonely culture, so that people can like have a fantasy girlfriend. But then now that everything is going, especially online, especially that now, I mean, obviously this has been going on for a while, but you know, a lot of like quote unquote like hot women are joining like the streaming space and playing games and are involved in that space. So now there's people that are like fantasizing not just about having a hot girlfriend, but about having like these women as their girlfriend. I remember when you brought this up earlier on the other day, I remember the White Rabbit ASMR.
Yep.
So everybody knows.
Everyone.
What?
I was just because you were talking about ASMR. Everyone knows about White Rabbit ASMR.
No. I'm like getting ahead of myself, but we all have friends that are like women, right?
Yeesh.
Yeah,
you do,
girl. But we all know women with high follower accounts on their social media.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then the day comes where they post a day out to the beach and they're holding somebody's hand and then they lose 200 followers.
Yeah.
oh, that's funny.
Because people
I've
want
never-
that fantasy.
I've never known any popular people.
Dude, I have friends that are that's
Josh
really-
just admitted he's a nerd.
I'm a nerd and my friends are losers.
I know so many like I've heard conversations and I've known women that like they post about it on Twitter, but they won't post about it on Instagram.
That's so funny.
But like they'll say how like it's like a strategic move that women will not post their boyfriends or husbands.
I do know about that. I know one girl who has she's an artist and she has a high following, and I didn't even know she had a significant other.
Yeah.
And I found out recently she got blocked and muted. No, I'm just joking.
but okay, so White Rabbit ASMR, it's my favorite ASMR artist. Okay.
Okay. You switched to your favorite a lot.
No. It was
You
her.
said Ida was your favorite.
I said I was watching a lot of Ida Fox.
Okay, all right.
But White Rabbit is my favorite.
All right.
She's talked about being married since the beginning, and her whole story about she met her husband in Canada and then moved to Italy and all this stuff, blah blah blah. So people have known that she's married, but I remember she started doing these videos with her husband where they were like trying snacks and stuff, and I pay for YouTube Premium. Okay,
Right.
I can scroll through the comments while the video plays.
Is that a premium feature?
On the mobile app? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If you don't pay for it and you try to read comments while the video is playing,
It stops?
it stops.
Oh,
Really?
God.
Yeah.
Couldn't
It's
imagine
very-
living like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
What is this,
I paid for
2008?
premium just so I could close the app and
Dude.
listen at work.
Yeah.
That's why I paid for YouTube Premium so that I can play ASMR videos to go
Hey,
to sleep.
YouTube, sponsor
Suckers.
us for all this
Yeah.
praise.
We love YouTube. Wait, this is Patreon. Wait, isn't it?
No,
Oh.
I don't know. But
All right.
We'll
Never
see.
mind. I have no idea.
my whole point is she started doing these videos of just reviewing snacks with her husband, and then somebody left a comment that got like 1,000 likes. That was like, Ella, why do you have to make videos with your husband? Just let us have this fantasy.
I think those kind of comments are so funny. Yeah, I think the same thing happened with GB and her husband.
Yeah,
she has a
yeah.
husband that she brings on often. I've been ASMR artist. I've seen these clips. It's kind of in the same vein. Not to sidetrack too hard, but I've been seeing these clips of this guy who does like acro. That's what they've been calling it. They'll do like acrobatics,
Oh,
but he's
okay.
like going to these acrobat meetups, and all his videos are like very attractive women, and he's like, "Okay, have you ever done acro before?" And they're like, "No," and he's like,
He's the
"Okay."
one that he lays on his
He
back.
lays on his
does
back and he spins the
stuff.
girls. Have
I've
you
seen
gone to
that.
the comments?
No,
The
no,
comments
no.
are hilarious, dude, because it's just a bunch of dudes being like, we need to stop this guy. like he can't keep getting away with this. Like that kind of energy in all the comments because he's just like
because it's just him laying on his back with his
and
foot in the
just
air, and then
throwing
the
these
hottest
girls-
women in the world,
yeah.
and then just her ass resting on his feet.
And the other thing is he's extremely respectful.
Uh-huh.
He's like he turns his face. He doesn't do anything inappropriate. He's
Yeah.
a coach.
It's
Yeah,
all
He doesn't
about the
acro-
acrobatics.
It's all about the
And
acrobatics.
those guys are like, we can't even get them to talk to us.
yeah, and thousands of likes on all these comments, and everyone's like, "This guy can't keep getting away with this."
He can't keep respecting women and entertaining us.
It's so funny because every now and then you'll get a comment from one of the women, and they'll be like, "I don't know why everyone's like, I get it's a joke, but." Like he's very respectful and he's a good coach and all this stuff, and everyone will be like, I don't know. It's just funny energy.
But that's the thing, those things are kind of, I don't want to tie them exactly
Yeah.
together, but I
That's
feel
kind
like
of
that's
sidetrack.
where this AI girlfriend things come. Sorry for putting my hand
We
in
gotta
your face.
address this.
What?
You keep almost smacking me in the face.
I'm being very aware.
We're gonna put a clip in this episode of how many times he's almost smacked me in the face. It's
I'm
like
being
6.
very aware of where my hands are.
It's funny because neither of you can see.
Ah!
I'm not even that close to you.
It's
This
facial
is my
awareness.
blind spot. I'm blind in this eye.
Okay, well, look this way. Anyway,
Yeah, they're
but
kind
that's
of
where this thing comes from. I think is like the fantasy that people have. It's all parasocial relationships, and now there's this thing where people get some type of gratification out of ownership. I don't know if I want to go that far, but like
No, they
yeah,
do.
parasocial relationships are strengthening more than I thought they were.
It's the
I thought it
thing
was
of-
changing.
it's a thing of you could control a real hot woman,
Oh, right.
like
Oh,
the AI
right.
girlfriend. It's like that you can.
Oh, right.
I understand that.
Now the fantasy is
It's not just attention.
it's not just the attention. I mean, for some people that's what it is, because that's why people want to be the most. They want to have their name shout out, like they do. Like that is part of it, but I think I mean, it just feels like part of that is like they can control the person. So like I was saying, because before there's all kinds of like games and simulations of like where you can there's a girlfriend role play fantasy games like you can woo and like date a virtual
Yeah,
girlfriend.
and I thought that was crazy. I thought it was nuts when I saw it. I was like, this is crazy.
When you found them on Newgrounds?
But
No, even there's like more updated
you know what
versions
about
that
the
are way
Newgrounds
crazy.
ones is that the Newgrounds games were fun because they were filled with mini games. I used to play
Dude,
them when I was a
legit,
kid.
I was like, I'm building my skill set right now. I'm going to earn my dates.
Not me. I felt like I was watching
But
porn.
Well,
That was the thing that I hated was that I loved the mini games. Like there was like a fighting game one, and there was like it's just like puzzles, and then an added element of that was hentai, and I was always like, I don't need the hentai, just give me the game.
That's funny.
what a purist.
Yeah, but
On Newgrounds, I don't know what game you guys are referencing, but I used to play games that were like the Flash games that were like
Right.
Tetris, but
That's where
when you
Super
eliminate
Meat Boy
blocks,
started.
there was a
Oh.
naked girl behind it,
yeah,
like
there
that
was
kind of stuff.
Super Meat Boy started
I
on
don't know.
Newgrounds.
I didn't really
Yeah.
grow up with it. But there was this thing where I was always like 4 years behind with technology because it would always go to my brothers first.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fair.
But
So,
I don't know if I'd call
they had an
Newgrounds
Xbox
technology.
They had an Xbox 360 and we had like the Wii Fitness. And that was after everyone had already gone through it.
This is the most damaged Wii Fit you've ever.
I was about to say, I don't think I've ever heard
I did
anyone
launch
call it a
one
Wii
once.
Fitness.
Wii Fitness.
I did put too much swing into tennis once and the
You did.
controller slid off my wrist and out of my hand.
Into what?
The TV.
Yeah,
That was a category.
Of,
There was like a Tumblr or like a blog that was like Wii Fitness fails or Wii Fit fails or something like that.
Oh, ha! That guy messed up at Wii Fitness.
But anyway,
Fuck you.
back. So the AI thing,
Never mind.
it's
Say
a
it.
weird thing because some people are like, when you
It's
see
a
a
fat
weird
joke.
thing that doesn't make any sense, most likely it's a fetish.
Yeah.
Like you can't easily interpret like the logic behind it.
I'm actually kind of starting to hate that term. Like,
Fetish?
yeah, it's
Well, I think
starting
this
to
is a
lose
fetish.
its muster for me. Like, everything's a fetish. Then
Mustard
I think
fetish.
that this is a fetish.
if everything's a fetish, then nothing's a fetish, kind of a thing. for
No,
me.
but I do think that this one thing is a fetish.
I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, she has a OF. Like these people aren't. They're part of that thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I do agree that the controlling thing is part of it. I do think, like, you're right. It mostly comes from the lonely culture. I don't know what else. Is there an actual word for that?
I have
Well,
no
in
idea.
Japan, it's like a neat, kind of.
Is that what
Like,
it's?
neat is the term for it. It's like otaku is like a nerd, right? Like a real geeky nerd.
Mhm.
But neat is like someone that's like kind of withdrawn from society and kind of is not engaging.
Like a geek.
Like a geek, but more like not having a job almost if they don't need it. Like,
Did you know hentai just translates to pervert?
yeah, I think so. I think I
Like
knew
in
that.
anime, if they're calling someone a pervert, they yell hentai.
I know that, like, being alone is big in some Asian countries, Japan. Like, that's where, like, the mukbang thing came from, which a lot of people consider to be, like, ASMR was looked at as fetish for a little bit.
Right.
I mean, I think it still is for a lot of people.
But some,
They still
I'm sure
consider it
part
that.
of it definitely is, but
But that's why I get weird about it, because it's not fetish for me, and I watch it pretty regularly.
yeah,
you know what I
because the
mean?
motivation is like a lot to do with it, right?
Well, that's the thing about the definition of the word fetish, is because there isn't. It's mostly affiliated with sexual components, and that's not to say that there's never a sexual component involved, but there is some kind of like physical or emotional climax involved, and obsession involved. And like technically, if you're into ASMR, that could by definition be considered a fetish, but that doesn't inherently mean that it's sexual.
Right.
There is still some form of release, or like I think it's described when it's non sexual related.
The definition says a form of sexual desire in which gratification is strongly linked to a particular object or activity or a part of the body other than the sexual organs.
Other than
The thing with-
Then cut all that out.
Yeah.
The other thing-
you're talking about like kind of kink, not even kink, because you're talking about more BDSM.
They need like a third word.
Even if that was true, what you were saying, what we're talking about colloquially, people usually mean sex when they use the word fetish.
Right.
It's not really
like,
used
that
as
is what
like
the
something liking
vernacular
something.
is
Yeah,
now.
because that's what it is. It's,
Yeah, they need a third term.
You just made something up. I have no idea what you're even talking about.
you're just talking about liking something.
Yeah.
You just like something.
There's I
Hobby?
don't remember where I heard this, but there's a thing about how it's
What you're talking about sounds like
not finished.
what you're talking about sounds like how people talk about BDSM.
I guess. But what I was getting at is there's this concept, there's this idea of like essentially putting something on a pedestal that isn't inherently sexual. But I don't remember the term for it.
But
Oh,
when we're talking about this, we are talking about this is a fetish. This is
What,
sexual.
Yeah.
what are you saying?
We were specifically talking about it being sexual, though.
Yeah, but I was responding to something that was said.
About
It's because I was saying
Dominic keeps interrupting.
ASMR and mukbangs are fetish, or like considered fetishes, but I wouldn't consider them a fetish because I watched them and there's no sexual gratification. If anything, it's the opposite when I watch a mukbang. It's disgusting. I'm disgusted.
That's the connection that Ryan was making.
See, that's the thing. Yeah.
That's what Ryan was saying about fetishes, is that what you're saying is that for you it's not a fetish, and so Ryan is saying there are these things that exist as a niche interest that aren't inherently fetishes.
Like people that are obsessed with pimple popping.
Fetish as a fetish?
No, as an interest that's non-sexualized. That's why
Oh.
I'm saying there should be a third term.
Yeah, I
think
guess
that's
I
like
agree with what
To
you're
me, that's
saying.
like morbid curiosity.
That's
It's like,
I guess.
you're gross. Ugh.
I'm
bro.
sure there is a term for that.
Yeah, I'm
There's
sure
gotta
there is.
be.
but I just mean, but
It's like the train
This
wreck
guy
thing
likes
where you
butts.
can't look away.
the no, because now we're getting too much into the weeds about all this.
You're right. You're right.
Semantics.
All I was saying though was that I don't think. Fuck. Now I don't remember the original point I was making.
Well, okay. So
why I said all
think that this AI girlfriend thing is a fetish, and that could be wrong with me. There could be people calling me out, and there's a whole culture around all this stuff. It's the same thing that happens with furries. It's the same thing that happens with ASMR, with mukbang, about how people see this and they're like, this is sexual. Like the whole thing with mukbang, I forgot what the full, because mukbang is a shortened version of 2 words.
Yeah, it's
and it essentially, I forgot what the translation is, but the whole point of mukbang is that, like, in Korea, eating is a social experience.
That's what I was kind of trying to get at about the lonely culture.
Yeah, so a lot of people turn on mukbang so that they have someone to eat with.
I used to try to joke about this, that like sometimes men get so horny and they don't realize they just want a hug. Like, you just don't know how to ask for emotional intimacy.
That episode of Arrested Development when they confuse friendship with romance.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
That's funny.
Men are so disconnected. So I have to bang you now. Like,
this is going into such, I don't know if you want to call it toxic masculinity or fragile male ego or whatever. But one of my favorite things is on The Sopranos, whenever they hug each other, it's always like 2 big dudes that are like slapping each other's backs, like
That's
5 slaps.
I think that's something from the streets.
Yeah,
it's
slap the shit out of each other.
It's just funny because it's like it's a way to embrace somebody, but also
it's because my dad used to hit me, so I don't know how to hold you.
The Sopranos is so silly.
Don't you start.
I've binge watched the show recently. It's one of those things where I almost like watched it out of spite so that I could critique it with full context.
Oh,
but it's the silliest fucking show I've ever seen.
It's like reading the whole Bible.
And that's what I think a lot of, like, I know like these things can be a fetish, like the AI girlfriend, but I think a lot of people are watching it with the like, what is going on? Like, what is happening to our world?
I think that's
what makes it more popular than anything. I think there's more people like me who are like, you got to see this.
I think because fetish is like inherently niche.
I think there are people watching. It's also the thing is, this is what I was going to say earlier. The people that are doing this now, the people that saw, because it did start with like people that are on like OnlyFans and stuff. But like the people that are doing it now that are just like, I'm just trying to pay my bills, whatever, like, they are all making money. Like I've like checked on a bunch of these live streams and like they each have a minimum of 2,000 people watching. So like people are interested in, I think now it's become a thing of what's your creativity? Like and how long can you keep it up without breaking character?
And honestly, like you said, that's impressive.
And cause there's a thing in TikTok culture, dude, TikTok is literally just made for people to make money, like for people, it's a economy, like the gift giving. First of all, the gift giving, that's its own thing, and I don't even want to take that away from people because I know people want to feel like they're contributing in some way. People want to be able to help. It's weird. It might sound weird, but it is like, I mean, people are on our Patreon, and I don't think they're fucking weirdos for being there.
No, because
I just mean like people want to give.
These are all vessels for community, ultimately, and yes, there's profit in it, and yes, that's why all these apps and things are created, is to make a profit. But people want to find community, not just one community. They want to find community for like almost all their interests. In almost every single part of them, because you can't find it's so rare that you find one friend that meets almost all of your interests, right? So then you want to find like a community for like Minecraft, you want to find a community for ASMR, you want to find community for mukbangs, and it's like, how many friends can you find that fits all of those? So they want to like jump into each of these communities and connect.
Sadly, you probably named 3 things that I like all 3 of those.
You just described Josh's house.
Yeah.
Josh is the one we're gonna see Josh next week. Fuck. but the
server is down.
Wow.
I know. It's up. It's back up.
It's back up.
Hanging with the boys.
That's right.
But TikTok is literally built for money exchanges. It's also because TikTok keeps a part of whatever is. That's why, like, the thing that I always got, I was okay with the gifts and the roses and the whatever, like, to a certain extent. But the thing where I was like, that's weird, that makes me uncomfortable, is the battles or whatever, where you can do like TikTok battles with each other. What's going on? What are you doing?
What?
I don't know. You
guys are just laughing.
I was laughing at what you were saying. I
What
was
did I
not
say
laughing.
that was funny?
You were talking about the battles, and I was thinking about people I've watched videos that were hilarious that people use their audience to troll other people, and they
Dude,
battle them.
Those battles are crazy.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, am I missing something?
So there's this thing on TikTok where you can, like, I can go live, and then we do a dual live. So we each go live together on one stream, right?
Oh,
and
right.
so you can enter, like, I forgot what it's called, but we can challenge each other. We could do a versus. So then, but the way that you win is your audience has to give you the most likes and the most gifts, and whoever gets the most gifts wins.
What is this, like a RTS? Like like this is like StarCraft, where you just have all your like.
I see what you're saying, but it's kind of the opposite. You're relying on your audience to donate and to like and
Yeah, like
and
them
stuff.
giving all the likes and then
boost your score.
giving you roses and giving you gifts and stuff. That's how you get points, is your audience. And then so, like, it's literally people just like looking at the screen like, come on guys, let's get some more roses.
Yeah.
We
Like,
require more Vespine gas.
And some people are trolls. Like they'll just go on and like roast the other person, and like the
So
votes
what I
are
saw some people-
roast faced.
If
What is-
that's not a thing, that would be a funny thing to do, is have an NPC versus an NPC, and then it turns into what's that, platform 2D fighting game where they're both just like,
Yeah.
Kadoosh! I think that'd be hilarious.
Interesting.
that would be funny.
Hello.
Hello!
So we're starting the episode now?
That would, so to answer your question, that would be my NPC catchphrase. Hello!
That's it.
Hello.
I'd be
It's a
like,
Bulbasaur.
I'm just the guy that stands next to the door, like in a GTA liquor store. Hello!
And I'd be the guy on the street like, what did you call me?
Hello! Hey there. We get into a fight? I'm one of those characters. Like,
Are you gonna
that
start the
fights
show now?
I thought we started it like we've been talking for like 2 hours. The fuck are you talking about?
It's been 40 minutes.
I hate when people say the fuck so much.
The fuck? And then we
I think
zoom
it's
into
funny.
the intro.
Huh?
I like when people.
Oh.
If you made it this far,
If you made it this far, what's something that you've been struggling to unlearn from past traditions? And from us at Un Poquito, don't fly!
See you in September.
Unless you're Neo.
That's in September.